Robert Daly is director of the Kissinger Institute on China and the United States at the Wilson Center. He joins us again on Now. And Robert, today we're going to be talking about security threats of an unconventional manner from the Chinese point of view. When we think of security threats in this country, it usually revolves around things like terrorism. What are we talking about in this context?
Well, in China, security comprises terrorism, and it also comprises things like splittist threats, threats to the sovereignty of China. But when Xi Jinping founded a new National Security Commission, and he himself heads this is one of the hallmarks of his leadership, there were 5 major kinds of threats to domestic security that he identified, not only terrorism and splitism, but also the threat from Western culture, by which is meant usually largely American cultural influences. We're on the same list with terrorism.
And on the list are things like universal human rights, government transparency, press freedoms, things that we view as ultimate virtues.
Well, and this is a list of what the Chinese call the Qi Buzhun. It's the 7 things that, again, under Xi Jinping, university faculty are not supposed to discuss with their students. It includes universal values, freedom of the press, an independent judiciary, civil society, civil rights, and so things, yes, that we see as the hallmarks of not only American or Western, but of modern governance and modern societies are identified as existential threats now in China.
And is it exactly what it appears to be, that the Communist Party feels with these types of values becoming more and more prevalent, that it can't survive?
Yes, you leapt right to the conclusion. It's not simply Maoist-style ideological warfare. There have been periodic under Mao and then especially under Deng in the 80s campaigns against spiritual pollution, what they call spiritual pollution or peaceful evolution. Deng Xiaoping said when he started to carry out the campaign of modernization and opening up, that when you open a window, you let in a few flies. So we're going to open the window because we want Western investment, managerial expertise and technology, and we know that there are going to be some ideological or cultural influences coming in with it. We think we can deal with those. What's interesting is that after 35 years of U.S. China relations, in which there's been a lot of Western cultural influence, which has not made the Chinese less patriotic. Chinese nationalism and patriotism, pride, justified pride in their achievements, has gone up. Xi Jinping now feels compelled, apparently as a matter of existential threat, to have an orchestrated government campaign against this influence. One of the ironies of this, China complains regularly about American independent commercial media having a bias against China. This is not independent commercial media bias. This is Chinese government orchestrated campaign against the United States. So you asked the right question. Why now? Why do this?
If what you say that patriotism, Chinese patriotism, is not waning, then are these fears unfounded?
No, I think that these fears from the Chinese Communist Party's point of view are founded. With China's rise and this narrative of Chinese rise, this dominates our thinking here I think probably at the Wilson Center and other think tanks, in the media. And the China's rise, and to some degree the China's challenge narrative, has eclipsed the previous narrative, which was China's modernization. That hasn't gone away, and I think the question of Chinese modernity is still the right large framework in which to look at China. I think this is how the Chinese themselves see it. And the problem here that Xi Jinping and the other leaders of the Communist Party see is, what is the moral foundation of the Chinese Communist Party's leadership? China knows where it wants to go. Its goals, broadly speaking, are clear: continued economic development, increased national power. But what is the moral foundation of this? And this may seem like a strange question to people in America, but in China it's essential, because in China, traditionally and in modern times, power is supposed to rest on virtue, on a virtue narrative, on morality. And moral leaders who have the mandate of having to lead are supposed to demonstrate that by being protectors and promoters of the culture.
A lot of the rhetoric sounds conspiratorial or suggests conspiracy. Western cultural infiltration is one of the phrases that emerges. Is this just purely manipulation, or do the people writing this stuff really believe that this is corrupting influence?
I think that for the most part, they really believe it. They are quite sincere. Chinese, and particularly the young, are gobbling this stuff up whole hog. American film, Transformers 4 is now the all-time box office leader in China. It just eclipsed Avatar. American films, American pop music, American books. You go into Chinese bookstores, hundreds and hundreds of titles are translated from English, all kinds of materials available. There's an appetite for this. What does the Communist Party offer against this? Stability. Stability and the provision of stability is the moral framework upon which the Communist Party's authority rests. The Communist Party deserves to be where it is because we provide the stability for development, stability based on cultural cohesion, cultural conservatism, people suppressing individual urges. The problem with stability, this is not much fun. How does it compete with Transformers 4, silly as that may be? And so Xi Jinping is in a real bind. He would like to be seen as overseeing a China which had its own exuberant culture, but he's not willing to release the tremendous talent in China.
Echoes of Gorbachev and the Soviet Union here. The final question, because we're tight on time, is
right.
You mentioned that there's a desire here for money and knowledge and technology from the West. Can you have that without the other? Is this a losing battle?
In the long term, it may well be. Xi Jinping clearly has not figured out how to have it both ways, although in areas like technology he would like to. And what we see, again, through this lens of China's modernization is a structure for what is the cultural, moral, ideological underpinning of a modern China that is both authoritarian but also rich and what Xi, I think, would like, culturally exuberant in a certain sense. They haven't figured that out yet.
Well, I hope we can talk about this again. It's a fascinating topic and not going away.
Not going away.
Thanks, Robert.